He's misunderstood. Some say that he's up to no good around the neighborhood. Well, for your information, a lot of my brothers got education.
Hello everybody and welcome to Desynthesis. This is episode number 70. My name is Josh Clark. Today we're going to discuss psychology, the study of human behaviors as well as mental processes. Now from a design perspective, some may ask, psychology, what relevance does this have? And I think it's something that's very critical in the contemporary form of design. I think psychology as a whole discipline is very relevant in terms of what we're trying to do, but more specifically the cognitive sciences, as well as engineering psychology and the human factors. So what we know and we understand about psychology is it's an empirical science. It's based on observation as well as experience. Modern psychology is considered to have began in, I think, 1879 with Wilhelm Wundt at Harvard University. He had a lab at Harvard University, and his sort of methodology approach to psychology was the structuralist approach. Scientists studying within the field of psychology would later criticize this approach because it sort of wanted to just dissect consciousness, which didn't really seem practical, because the experience of consciousness is a holistic one. So then came along Skinner, B.F. Skinner, and his approach to psychology is considered behaviorism, and it's sort of limited, though. It has its own limitations, which is sort of focuses on observable behavior. Then you have some of the more popular cultural figures within the field of psychology, Freud, psychoanalytical theory, which we won't get into very much, but that sort of exploring the subconscious and putting the subconscious onto the agenda. So the main sort of idea behind psychology as a discipline is really trying to get at thinking about the individual subject and his experiences in a critical way, forming a critical attitude about individual human experiences. So the scientific method is something that helps us think critically about psychology, and we can do this in various ways. There's a lot of different methods for conducting psychological research, and there's naturalistic observation, which is a sort of ethnographic style of capturing raw footage of activity of a particular environment or space or whatever you're trying to study psychologically. You also have case studies, surveys, which can be difficult sometimes. It's very easy to be biased or suggestive in a survey, and I think that's the attempt with psychology, is to be as objective as possible and to not be suggestive. But another methodology you have is correlational studies. So with this, what you're trying to do is pretty much bring together all of your research in order to unify that research. So bringing together surveys beside case studies, as well as naturalistic observation, and finding a way to almost determine what are the cause and effect relationships between certain variables, which can be very difficult to do as well, because even in the conduction of experiments, what you want to try and do is manipulate an independent variable and place it against a dependent variable to create some sort of cause and effect relationship, to draw some conclusions. But this in itself can also be a very sort of suggestive method in trying to draw conclusions in your work. So what we also try to do is, in the sort of experimentation process, is when involving participants in this process, you want to create an experiment group as well as a control group. Now in this control group, you're going to, in order to be as unbiased as possible during the experimentation process, you also want to the experimenter doesn't want to be the one responsible of creating or dividing the experiment group from the control group, because that introduces a lot of bias into the experiment, and hopefully also a placebo can be placed into the control group to help introduce the right variables into your experiment. Behavioral genetics tries to get at the relationship between genes, as well as our experience of being raised or being brought up in a particular way, and how these two things correlate in forming behavior. Next time we'll look a little bit more at behavior as well as biology. Designicism, a fusion of design and cynicism, is a philosophical position which questions the industrial agenda, as well as tries to encourage purpose-driven and values-based work within the design community. Designicism.com is a division of Blockaway Innovation and is a global parent and supporter of UNICEF, which strives to ensure health, education, and equality for children everywhere.